order, and we have a quorum. So the first thing, this is our first meeting, so we need to adopt our rules. In the package, you will see it's a one-pager. Does anybody have any questions or issues with these rules? Hearing no questions or issues, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt them.
Move that we adopt the rules, Madam Chair.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the rules are adopted. Okay, we're going to move to our first bill. And Representative Leverett, why don't you go ahead and just to make sure we're on the same page, we're dealing with LC 412658?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let me just say, just express my appreciation for the chair placing this bill on the agenda and the committee for hearing it. I hate to say it's a simple bill because I know that turns the most kind-hearted of legislator into a cynic, but I'll just say the bill was requested initially by the Georgia Council of Probate Judges, and it does basically just three things. One, it requires the chief clerk of a probate court to swear an oath. Currently, there is no statutory requirement that they take an oath. Two, it sets out the text of that oath. And three, it requires that the oath be placed upon the minutes of the court. So that's all the bill does. Now, to put that in context, to answer the question, well, why is this important? About, I think, 2 years ago, the General Assembly passed Senate Bill 436, which made significant revisions to what I call the probate court code, the Title 15, Chapter 9 portion of the code that deals with the structure and jurisdiction of probate courts, not the probate court, not the probate code, which deals with the procedures for probating wills and so forth, but the Title 15 provision. And it changed the former line of succession, if you will, if the probate judge passed away while in office. And now the chief clerk is one of the people in that line of succession. So apparently, as you know, most of the things that happen here happen because of some kind of real world experience. We, during the last year, I don't know if you heard in the Chief Justice's speech this morning, it was shocking to me to hear the number of jurists who we lost. And a number of those were probate judges. And one of them passed, and there was really no debate, just sort of anecdotally about who the chief clerk was, but there wasn't anything in writing saying who the chief clerk was for various purposes. So this is a way, using sort of a very familiar construct and procedure that judges are familiar with, swearing oaths. They administer oaths and they put oaths in the minutes all the time, where they can create a written record of who that person is in the unhappy event that something should happen to the probate judge while they're in the middle of their term. And so this would provide that written confirmation, if you will. And this has been requested by the Council of Judges. I'm not aware of any opposition or controversy surrounding it. It is a fairly clean kind of housekeeping bill.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. I'm not sure why it's so. Oh, sorry. All right, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to pass on HB 97.
And just for purpose of the record, do pass for LC 412658.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Do I get a second? Seconded by Senator Goodman. All right. All in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. Unanimous. Thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you very
appreciate
much,
it.
Chair and members of the committee.
Oh, one question. Do you have you already picked out who's going to carry this for you?
Yes, Senator Hatchett's carrying this.
Great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Representative Williams, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
And so just so the committee knows, we've got a committee sub. For purposes of the record, it's LC 364810S. Is that the one you're looking at, Representative?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
And Thank you for hearing this. Also, I've been on the phone with the Attorney General's office about this bill, and they had asked for 1 or 2 minor changes that I can walk you through. Had to do with the time limit. Sean Marie Story from Legislative Council is working on this. She's emailed it to me, and there's just a couple of minor changes.
Okay.
That,
Why don't you tell us about the bill generally, and
Yes,
then tell
ma'am.
us what the changes the Attorney General has requested you make?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Is it all right if I remove
Absolutely,
my mask?
that's
Thank
fine.
you. What spurred this bill is I'm in the funeral business and have been all of my life, along with my family, my father, my sons. But in excuse me, in times we've noticed more and more things happening. And part of it was down in Macon, Georgia. You may have seen Randy Travis on Fox 5 do his expose of this funeral home that owned a cemetery down in Gray, Georgia. The cemetery was allowed to operate for 15 years without a license. They did not renew their license. So within this 15-year time period, this person also owned a funeral home and was selling pre-need funerals. These are people that are planning for their own funeral. They were paying this person cash money, writing him checks, and he was spending the money as fast as it was coming in. This went on for 15 years. The Georgia State Board of Cemeterians took no action. I have copies of the minutes where they talked about it at various meetings, but they never followed through to see what was happening or why. That was the number one sign. Finally, the sheriff of Jones County and our district attorney down there in the Okmulgee Judicial Circuit got on board, and they went to investigating, and they made things happen. They indicted this person. They got him indicted 2 days after he was arrested. Then he was tried. He pled out, and he wound up, and he's in Jackson, Georgia, in state prison right now, serving oil. He was sentenced to 20, served 5. The man is elderly, but what had happened, he has built probably $250,000 to families that have prepaid funerals, and those funerals, and their money is gone. Also, what he did, in owning a cemetery, when you sell a cemetery space, you have to put a certain amount of the sales price into a perpetual care account. Once a cemetery, always a cemetery. This perpetual care account is set up so that when that cemetery becomes full, there's money, interest off that corpus will be paying someone to keep up and maintain the cemetery. Well, probably at least $250,000 is missing out of that. You're talking about $500,000. The cemetery has now been placed into receivership. Nulia Zaharis was brought in to the Secretary of State's Office, Securities Division. They have moved some of this accountability back to the Secretary of State's office. What had happened when people were doing their pre-need reports, they were mailing them to Macon, to the Secretary of State's office. All they were doing, and they admitted in hearings we had, they were putting those reports into boxes. No one ever looked at them. Well, of course, if you're going to lie and cheat, you're going to do it anyway, so it really wouldn't matter what's on those reports. Pardon me, this sinus allergies has been something else. But also, this past year, there was a report of a funeral home in Middle Georgia that was practicing without a license. The State Board of Funeral Service, through their just investigations and going through their meetings of once monthly, after about 5 months, it was uncovered that this funeral director had no funeral director. This funeral home owner did not have a funeral director acting in full and continuous charge at this funeral home. So there was about 45 counts of forgery committed by this funeral home. And it took almost 5 months for that information and for that state board to take action. Now, what I'm about is consumer protection. These state boards, and I've been around it all my life, and I've seen where they protected the profession. We've got to protect mama and daddy, grandpa and grandma. We've got to protect the public. Without protecting them, we've lost all accountability, and that's why I brought this bill, is to make them report when they see some illegal activity taking place, possibly felonies, to go ahead and report it to the law enforcement officer of that local jurisdiction, where it be the sheriff or the police chief, and also to the district attorney of that circuit. Go ahead and make them aware, so if they need to do investigations, then they would be getting into the investigation. Now, in speaking with the Attorney General's office, I had asked them I guess probably a month ago, to look at this and give me some input. Well, today they decided to give me some input.
Well, that was nice of them.
So what they wanted to change is on line 38, where it says within 7 days. They wanted it to, let's see if I can get my, starts on line 35. If such investigation shows that there may be violations of state or federal criminal law, there should be affirmative obligation on behalf of the board to provide notice of such potential illegalities within, and they want to say within a reasonable amount of time, not to exceed 75 days. 75 days is a long time.
That's a long time.
And what I told them, look, I don't know if any of you have ever attended a state board meeting, but they have an attorney at that meeting from the Attorney General's office. So that attorney is sitting there representing, and Kathy has, if you'll just hand them to them. This is my admin, and she has I think the latest copies. But when they're wanting to go to that long period of time, it gives somebody more time to be breaking the law. But these attorneys are sitting there at these board meetings, and they know when the complaint comes in, they know when the investigations of the board, and the boards don't have real investigators. They have inspectors that will go out and knock on a door, and they'll appoint somebody to come and investigate through the Secretary of State's office. When Governor Kemp was governor, I had some issues with the state boards, and I spoke to him, and as Secretary of State, he said, you know, as Secretary of State, I actually have no jurisdiction over those boards. The governor does. The governor appoints these boards. Well, here we've still got issues, we've still got problems, and I'm just trying to get it fixed. It's Shaw Marie story. Shaw Marie, I'm not sure if this has turned out the way they wanted it on the time period.
This is a new sub that you requested is ready, and we are good, but we are not that good, but they're bringing it over now.
Okay.
Your legislative assistant brought over was, I think, the same thing that the committee has.
Yeah,
now.
the sub we have now.
Shortly, they will have a sub that
Okay,
Representative Williams
okay.
requested. So they're,
Thank you.
they're walking it over.
Thank you.
So our apologies.
No.
Okay, thank you very much for your help.
Representative Williams, it sounds to me that while there is a committee sub coming that reflects the Attorney General's request in terms of the 75-day, it doesn't sound like you're necessarily in favor of that.
Well, I compromised. They wanted 90, and I gave them 75. I started at 30, but I feel like time is of the essence, and this is what I told them, you know, and I I try not to, I'm no attorney, I'm a country undertaker. So I've just tried to come up here and do things to help folks back home. And I think this will help folks even if we just get this passed and get it on there. And we can fine tune it if we have to with time limit, maybe next year. I don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
I'll stand for any questions or.
Yeah, Senator Parent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for bringing the legislation, Representative. I appreciate your work on consumer protection within your industry. I think that is important. So on the, I know we'll look at the sub, but I think you said the language would be within a reasonable amount of time, not to exceed 75 days?
Yes, ma'am.
What would be the reason for, I'm a little confused. It sends almost like a mixed message,
Well,
right?
and-
It's like, okay, you have 75 days or you don't.
Well, and when I watch these people in Jones County and I watch the courtroom and those people testifying, why does it take so long? As a small business owner, if I have something broken, I fix it today, or I fix it this week, or within a couple of days. But, you're right, that's a long period of time.
Well, because you're having, and they did not complain, the board is okay with, or you're interested in moving forward on, the board needs to investigate within 30 days.
Yes, ma'am. Those boards meet once a month. And what I'd like to do maybe next session is work on maybe that they can mandate that if reports are given to them of criminal activity, that they can start holding meetings prior to, they can call emergency meetings. Right now they pay those board members per diem, but they meet once a month, and you can look through the cemetery board, State Board of Cemeterians, and they go for several months and don't even meet. And so, we've got some issues, and I'm just trying to start little and build up and try to fix some problems.
Can I ask one more? Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So the Attorney General has requested this change in language.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm slightly, to me, it would make more sense if it were the state board that was saying, we want this amount of time because they're doing an investigation or whatever it is. I'm confused why what does it matter to the Attorney General when they get the referral as it relates to when the investigation is launched? Is it something like we want to give them more time to work? I mean, I'm trying to understand the reason. I could see 7 being short just as like a practical matter, but as far as like the AG's interest, what am I missing in terms of why they feel the board needs more time? What does it matter to them?
The Attorney General's office represents all of these state boards.
That's what I was missing. Okay.
That's the issue. And like I told Jordan Watson is who I'd been speaking with, who's a policy analyst with the AG's office. You actually have a member of the Attorney General's staff at these board meetings. They know when it's reported. They know what the board members know. They would recognize before the board members if it's illegal activity and needs to be followed up on. I'm at your mercy. I will take whatever you can give us and the public, and I will take any consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll answer
Representative-
any other question. Yes, ma'am.
One more question. It talks about unlawful, specifically it says violations of state or federal criminal law. You talked about the lack of licensure for some of these entities. Is not getting a license and operating a violation of state criminal law? Do we know that, Beth?
I don't know. I don't know that. We had a different code section in there. If you look on the earlier one, they felt like that the board would be sending complaints to them of minor infractions. Someone didn't get a death certificate quick enough. Someone didn't get the register book. Someone didn't get the flag off the casket. They hear all kind of things like that. So they asked that it be changed to those code sections, and Super Attorney Sean Marie could probably explain that a little bit better than I could.
Yeah, I'd specifically like to know as to the licensure, because it looks like the licensure is almost like the red flag that goes up, that there may be something more happening. And that may be the first thing that the board recognizes or gets wind of. So,
Well, you're right, and we may have to make lack of operating without a license in that funeral law or cemetery law. We may have to make that a stiffer penalty or infraction of the law.
okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. You're number 7. Colt?
First of all, thank you, Representative Williams, for bringing the legislation. Help me understand currently, when there is a complaint filed to the board, what is the process that the board would go through?
Well, what happens, you can go online and file a complaint. What they do, and you may file it today's date. They may have met yesterday. So it's going to be a month from now before that board takes up that complaint. They will take up that complaint, they will assign it to 2 members of their board who investigates complaints. In the meantime, they may send an inspector out to the premises to look or to check. They'll come back and they'll make a report to the board at their next monthly meeting 30 days later. So then they may say, okay, we need to get our investigators from the SOS office to go and investigate, if we can get them away from the elections. So then they may get them, and there's no telling when they might get out there. To bring something up, I don't know if any of you heard about a situation down in Wrightsville, Georgia. This has been about 4 or 5 years ago now, that a funeral home down there was giving the wrong cremains to families. Brantley Funeral Home. State Board of Funeral Service has not done anything as of yet. The Attorney General down there, or the District Attorney down there, has done nothing as of yet. So, we've got a problem from crooks. We've got a problem, and we just got to clean it up. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
I think, at least in part, first of all...
It just takes about 3 or 4 months, 5 months before they get to the
Right.
meat of the issue.
By the way, Wrightsville and Johnson County is a part of the 23rd Senate District, which I represent. I think my concern is, first of all, I'm familiar with the situation, I believe, in Jones County. That
Yes,
was
sir.
atrocious,
Yes, sir.
unacceptable. There's no conscionable excuse for what happened. So I'm totally with you on addressing the issue. I'm just trying to make sure I understand how best to address it.
Yes, sir.
The investigation concerns me because the board does an investigation, and then supposedly the Secretary of State does an investigation before criminal activity is determined. Is that right? So we have allegations, but we're trying to determine whether the allegations are substantive. Many times they are. Perhaps in some cases they may not be. The question is, when do we involve the Attorney General? Right now what you have is 30 days and then immediately refer. Why would we, is the issue with the Secretary of State where we're not conducting investigations in a timely manner? Is that the issue? Is that why we need to bypass, are we bypassing the Secretary of State?
No, actually, what has happened, I think I may have hit this point before you came in.
I apologize.
No, that's quite all right, sir. That's quite all right. The Secretary of State used to oversee cemeteries through the Securities Division. Back in the Cemetery Act of 1983, 84, is when Wayne Howell, who was director of the Securities Division, enacted that. I was there, by the way. I'm a dinosaur. I've been around a long time.
Well, perhaps we're in the same league. I'm not
Yes, sir.
sure.
But, and it was mainly to try to stop this kind of theft and this kind of deception. But the Attorney General's, the Secretary of State brought Nulia Zaharis back to Securities Division. She has now moved enforcement of cemeteries back to here at Twin Towers. It was in Macon. Whenever pre-need dealers and pre-need funeral dealers are under the auspices of the State Board of Cemeterians. So you have to submit your annual report to the State Board of Cemeterians. They admitted in hearings that we had session before last, when they got those reports, they just put them in a box. They had no staff to look at them, to oversee them. Now they're brought back to Securities Division, but like, for instance, there's a funeral home in Middle Georgia right now. Just 2 months ago, it was the State Board of Funeral Service fined this funeral home owner $5,000 for committing about 45 acts of forgery. These are felonies. The sheriff of that county had found out that there was an investigation going. He called the State Board of Funeral Service in Macon, Georgia, asked Brad Coleman, I think is the director, for a copy of any investigations. And he told him, the board's not made a decision yet. We can't give that to you. The board will have to decide if they can give that to you. That's when the sheriff, Howard Seals of Putnam County, if any of you know the name, he told him, he said, you know, I can get a search warrant, and I will if I have to, and I'll come get them. Finally, after a month or so, they did send the information over to the sheriff. So our district attorney, Wright Barksdale, and Sheriff Seals has that information now. The courts are still shut down there, so they're starting to get to investigating. But yes, there is definitely a problem, and I'm trying to get a foot in the door to start addressing the problem and the issues.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does anybody else have any questions? So Representative Williams, I think part of my issue is, and what Chairman Burns brought up, is there's already a lag in time anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
30, 60, 90 days before there's even any action by the board or recognition formally that an allegation is legit, let's just say. And then tacking on 75 more days from there, especially if you're talking about a situation where somebody is taking people's funds, absconding, all that kind of stuff. That's a little concerning in terms of the timeline, especially if the AG has been sitting in the board meetings and kind of has been following what's been going on all along.
Yes, ma'am.
So I do think 7 days may be unreasonable, but I think 75 may be.
I had started at 30 days. And here again, we're not asking them to prosecute. We're asking them to make local law enforcement aware.
Just a notification, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Notification. We're not asking them to prosecute. We'll just make the local law enforcement, make the local district attorney aware that there may be some criminal activity taking place.
Senator Parent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the representative and sort of the point that you raised. I think that 30 days would be, 30 or 35 days would be appropriate, just throwing that out there to the committee, especially with the board needs to be investigating within 30 days. You could line up the timeframes so it's not confusing, unless you think that would harm, the bill's chance of passage, because I am in agreement with you that making some progress on the issue is more important than really quibbling with the Attorney General's office if they insist on this language. But if they don't, I think we would want to take out the within a reasonable time period, not to exceed 75 days, and put in an actual time period.
I'll take whatever you give me, ma'am.
Madam
All
Chair, could I suggest to the author, I agree with Senator Parent. And I agree with you. Again, I'd rather move forward with something as opposed to not having something that will move forward. Would the author be considered of a, you started at 30 and they offered 90, you're at 75? I mean, I'm looking at 60 and saying that's kind of where we might have some agreement. Again, I'm not at all opposed to what you're doing. Here we go. We're negotiating on a time frame, and the irony of it. And I agree with Senator Merritt, if I may, Madam Chairman. I apologize.
Absolutely.
We're concerned with the time frame. I think the good news is this would encourage the Attorney General to act in a more prompt manner, and perhaps we could do that with any number that might be reasonably acceptable.
So if anyone would like to make a motion, if you are amenable,
I am very much amenable. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
okay, to amending the committee substitute, is that what we would do, Beth?
So, I think it depends on which substitute you're moving on. He's now presented a new,
Two, right? We just,
yes.
Sean Marie, are you,
So
you in on
we just
this?
need to be clear on which committee substitute we're working from, and then the motion would be to amend that substitute.
Sean Marie, with respect to that, which would be the best, easiest substitute to amend if we just wanted to increase the number of days?
Well, there are other changes that are in Representative Williams' sub. If you look, for instance, on lines 36 and 37, those changes were also requested by the Attorney General's office. And so if you
So-
like those changes, or if you want to make changes to those changes, then my suggestion would be that I would, of course, defer to Senate research, but I think you would probably want to start with the LC 364813S.
Okay, that makes sense.
that's the most current.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree.
And so specifically what we're looking at is line 41 and 42. And,
Yes, and then those additional changes are on lines 36 and 37. And what that did was take that language that you referred to earlier, Madam Chair, when you talked about there would be a violation of state or federal criminal law. And the AG's asked that we specifically reference code section 10-14-17 or 10-14-18. And so we added that in, but they kept that felony violation of state or federal criminal law, because there is some federal law that governs some of the professions that are licensed under these boards as well.
okay,
And then the other change was at line
57 and 58?
41 and 42.
Okay.
But Madam Chair, you are correct. So these two provisions, the ones that start on line 34 and go to 45, are duplicated in lines 51 through 61. So any changes y'all make to 35 through 45, you may also want to make to 51 and 61, because the difference is one board is governed under one and the
Right.
other board is governed under the second part.
Does anybody want to make a motion or specifically about the language, or?
If
Senator
I'm
Parent?
recognized, Madam Chair. You know, I think that, I'll put it out to the committee, in light of the fact that the Attorney General is present with the board, you know, you really could argue they're already provided notification in many ways. So I'm going to put it out there to on lines 41 and 42 and 57 and 58 to strike a reasonable time period not to exceed 75 days and just put in shall within 30 days provide the appropriate prosecuting attorney. And then that would be the same for the, you know, the other section. which would be lines 57 and 58. So that's my motion to amend for the committee's consideration.
Okay, so for purposes of the record and to make it very clear,
Yes, I should have said the LC number.
Senator Parent is moving to amend LC 364813S on lines 41 and 42, and it will read, "The Attorney General shall, within 30 days, provide the appropriate prosecuting attorney." And then on lines 57 and 58, "The Attorney General shall, within 30 days, provide the appropriate prosecuting attorney." And do you think that gets us there, Sean Marie?
Yes, ma'am, it sounds like that gets you what the motion.
What the motion is doing? Yes, Senator? Do you, okay,
We need a second to discuss. That's-
yes.
We should technically have a motion
Have a motion and a second.
on the sub, and then have a motion to take it.
Okay. so
Oh, that's
we
right,
will-
yeah, we had to move to pass on LC 364813S.
You have to have a motion to consider.
Then, if we get that, then we do the motion to amend and then move it as amended.
Okay, go.
So I'll make a motion to pass on LC 364813S.
Is there a second? Senator Anderson, Senator Merritt.
So now, a motion to amend would be appropriate, Madam Chair. Do I need to repeat the whole thing? Now, I believe the
I
motion
think it's clear.
Okay, I think it's
Oh,
clear for
yeah.
the record.
previously made would be ripe for discussion.
Okay. Do we need a second
Need a
before
second.
we can discuss? Okay. And did you second, Senator Burns?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, for discussion.
Uh,
All right? Yes,
A
sir.
point, Madam Chair. I appreciate the senator's amendment, and I do not disagree. I am concerned about the time frame, and I would like to ask her to consider from 30 to 60 and leave the reasonable time frame in there, because that gives the Attorney General flexibility of completing it sooner. So I would ask that you consider, recognizing that we may be able to be successful in committee, but we have to be successful in the future.
Well,
I'd ask
that
you
is
to consider that.
thank you very much for that, Chairman Burns. I actually, I don't, I'm not against having the reasonable language. I didn't really think it got us anything, because I would think if you did within, then they should know that you could do it sooner.
Right.
But if that's what you would like, and if the author of the bill is positive, though, is, do we think that would cause you trouble? I would hate to see the AG then, be fighting against the legislation. I think we would all rather have it be 75, frankly, and not hold up your bill. So what's your opinion on that?
If I could confer with my
You
attorney.
You can confer with your
Well,
counsel.
Wise man, away.
So our office doesn't comment on policy, but I was, if you don't mind me talking.
Please,
conversation,
you have my
I was
permission.
present during, or part of a phone call with the AG's office. And their rationale, I think, or at least what they represented to Representative Williamson's and I, is that they plan to do like a thorough review and determine if they feel like there has been some violation and decide the appropriate source to contact, and then to try to get up everything that they would need to make that prosecution. And so they were pretty adamant on the telephone. I think they would like 90 days. And Representative Williams and then went back and forth about that. And we made some of the same kind of questions that the committee has raised. I think that the AG's office would like as much time as possible. So I think that if 60 days is something that they would probably find more reasonable for them to work with, in terms of making sure that they have time in addition to all the other duties that they have to make sure that they're going about this in a thorough and a proper manner. But I think it's up to the will of the sponsoring committee what y'all y'all want to put forward.
One follow-up question with respect to that. So obviously the AG is there with the board. An attorney from the AG's office is there with the board and represents the board. Is the AG's office involved at all in terms of any of the investigations that the board does?
I'm just going to lay it on the line,
Okay.
if I might. Sheriff Butch Reese in Jones County and Steve Bradley, who is our district attorney, who's now Superior Court judge. They reported the issues in Jones County to the Attorney General's office over and over and over and over. And then all of a sudden I heard an attorney, and I can't name their name, say, if you want something to die, send it to the AG's office, because they can sure bury it. And that's what happened, and we were so frustrated down there because we couldn't get the Secretary of State, we couldn't get the Attorney General's office to do anything. And if it had not been for Sheriff Butch Reese and our assistant district attorney to really get involved, this guy would still be free as a bird taking people's money in Jones County. Do what you wish, I'll fight the battle. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I was out of place.
No, you were, we love a little passion on special duty, so it's just the right place
Well,
for
We
it.
do.
Yes, Senator Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also, in light of the comments from Legislative Counsel, wondering if it might be appropriate, and I'm not doing this in the form of a motion right now, to add, this conduct a review. Because I think what I was missing is, I thought we were kind of just talking about a referral, and now we're hearing, oh, they have all this work to do. So I think that maybe we want to have the legislation reflect that, so that it's clear. So it could be like the Attorney General shall conduct a review. Sean Murray would probably craft it better than I, but stick that in there, and then, we could maybe settle on the,
Just point of order, Madam Chair.
Sure.
We have a
We have a
motion and an amendment and discussion on the amendment. We've got to clear the amendment before we could
amend it again.
change it. Yeah, perhaps. I just
No, that's good.
Point
That's
of
good.
parliamentary
Right, so
inquiry.
I was not
yeah, I
trying to-
understand. We're
Yeah,
in
right.
discussion mode, and I
Yes.
agree with the discussion.
yes. But thank you. Yes.
Okay, so
If you would like to leave it at 60 days and let's pass it next session, if I find it's not working, then I'll come back. And I'll ask for the 7 days again.
So we have the motion to amend the motion, and then I think that we can vote on that. And then I would offer another amendment, unless I can I amend his amendment? I can?
If you
Okay.
would entertain a friendly amendment to your amendment, I think we can do that. Is that correct?
I think that's fine. I mean, it would be like.
Yeah, we're just going to change 30 to 60,
Okay.
and
Right.
then move.
But then my other amendment, can I do that to your
Yes.
amendment, or does that have to be
Yeah.
separate? So then I would also,
That would need to be separate because we got to do
it does need to be separate.
Okay, so a friendly amendment to Senator Parents, change 30 to 60, and we can,
Repeat it just so we're clear, like it would be
okay.
striking.
Yes, we will online, again, LC 364813S, online 41. Say, within a reasonable time period not to exceed 60 days.
60 days. That's good.
And then the same on line 75. I'm
50
sorry, line 58. Take out 75, put in 60.
60. That's good.
Okay, so we've got a motion to amend on the table. Wait,
The second.
Yeah,
The second
with a
motion.
second.
okay. We need a second.
You already have the
Oh,
second.
you've already said that. Okay. All right. So, all in favor, say aye, raise your hand
This is for the amendment.
for the amendment.
Yeah.
Okay. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none. All right, so the amendment has passed.
So now,
Now I have another
Now you have
amendment
another.
when I'm recognized.
Okay, I recognize you, Senator Parent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to our other chairman for keeping us on point of order. So, line 41, the Attorney General shall conduct a review and then it would be the same on line 57. Attorney General shall conduct a review and within a reasonable amount of time. Unless our lead counsel has a better suggestion if that gets too wordy.
No, I think that that's excellent. You may want to consider saying, shall conduct a review of such complaint, referring back to the complaint on line 35, and then put and. You could do it there on line 41, or you could say, within a reasonable time period not to exceed 60 days, is I think where you're at now, say, shall conduct a review of such complaint and provide the prosecuting, appropriate prosecuting.
The latter statement by legislative counsel, I think, is the most easily understandable.
So that would mean on lines 42 after days, as well as on line 58 after days, adding shall conduct a review of such complaint and.
Okay. And do we need a second for any discussion of this amendment?
I would go ahead.
yeah, this amendment, that's amendment, we need a second.
Right. Do I get a second? Do I have a second? Okay, Senator Anderson. Okay, anybody want to?
Just clarification of the wording one more time for those of us who are slow. So,
Adding after days on lines 42 and on line 58,
right?
shall conduct a review of such complaint and.
That's fine.
I think it should actually be conduct a review of such complaint and.
Wow, that's different now.
So it would read, the Attorney General shall, within a reasonable time period not to exceed 60 days,
Conduct a review of such complaint.
conduct a review,
The shells earlier.
conduct a review of such
Yeah,
complaint
see.
and provide the appropriate
Use that.
prosecuting attorney.
That's
Is that
good.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So, so now we vote, Beth? Okay. On Senator Parent's amendment with respect to lines 42 and 58, all in favor, raise your hands. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, the amendment passes. Okay. So now we need to go to the full bill, right? All right. All right.
Yeah.
The committee
As amended.
substitute
As amended, yeah.
as amended.
That's amendment.
Okay. Okay, so, anyone want to make a motion with respect to, or do we already have that on the table?
We return to the previous motion.
Okay, so,
So it's on the table with a second. Is that right?
Yes, we had a second from Senator Anderson.
okay. So all in favor of voting do pass for LC 364813S as amended, and amended again?
Well, you don't have to do that. It's just, it's really the substitute as amended, yeah.
Substitute as amended. Please raise your hand and say aye.
That's good.
All right,
Yeah, yeah.
all right.
All right.
Seeing no opposition, Representative Williams, do you know who you're going to want to carry this?
I'm not exactly sure, sir.
Whoever you choose.
You may want to carry it. This in your, since this comes from,
There's an issue in my district, I'll be happy to carry it for you.
Thank you,
If that's the will of the committee.
I-
I can't control my people, I promise you.
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you for
y'all.
bringing this to us. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. So, all right. I think,
Marvelous job, Madam Chair.
That's the
Very good,
business,
thank you.
And we will,
Thank you.
we adjourn.
Is it?